I'm Gary Douglas, Executive Director of the Chamber, and as hopefully most of you know by this point because you've been tuning in, we do different programs every couple of weeks on different aspects of business here in the North Country. Sometimes services that are available, things that the Chamber is doing, issues that may be affecting business out there, or sometimes just examining certain segments of the business community to help folks in the North Country better understand what it is that's impacting all of us up here. What's driving this economic equation for all of us here in the North Country. And there are some very unusual and distinctive aspects to our area up here that you won't find if you go very many other places. And some of that is because of our border location. And we know, for example, we've touched in the past on Canadian companies coming down here and locating. And we know how important that's becoming. The future of Plattsburgh Air Force Base, for example, is considered to be very, very keyed into attracting Canadian companies to locate there. But there are other aspects of this kind of Canadian connection for our area too, and one of them is just all of that trade activity that goes back and forth across the border, and some of the services and businesses that are related to managing and overseeing and helping to make that happen, and that are here in our area because we are such an important border crossing point between Canada and the U.S. And I know you probably all, I guess the best way I could put it, you probably all have been, I'm sure, been to Champlain and been to the border crossing area at some point in time. And you probably noticed all these kind of buildings that are close to the border crossing. And you see these names, you know, Transborder and Myers and Deringers and Towers and so on these buildings, and the term customs brokers. You may have heard the term freight forwarders with some companies that are out there, and probably don't really know what they do, because if you don't use those services yourself, as most people wouldn't, you wouldn't know what it is they do. But they obviously have big buildings there. There's something going on there. There's a lot of activity going on there. And so the point of this episode is really to kind of fill you all in on what it is that these folks are doing, these particular companies are doing there at the border, and why it's important to us. A few facts that I think might help set the stage for this. Our Canadian Connection Council at the Chamber did an impact study on the impact of Canada just on Clinton County. If you went beyond Clinton County, the numbers would be that much bigger. To put numbers on it, and we came up with the astounding number that I know you've all heard before, of $784 million in annual economic impact as of '94, and we know it's grown since then. But just to focus in on these folks in this particular part of the picture, we had analyzed in there what the economic impact is of border-related businesses. And what we meant by that category were just these sorts of folks and freight forwarders and others who work specifically with that cross-border trade activity. And we were rather astounded actually to learn that in 1994, these particular types of businesses, mostly here in Champlain, employed 699 people and had an annual payroll in excess of $18 million. And to put that in some perspective, that's more than the civilian employment was at Plattsburgh Air Force Base. And look at how much we kind of work to understand and appreciate that as an important part of this area. These folks here are providing that much activity and employment right here in Champlain, which obviously makes it important for us to understand it and to know it and appreciate it and know what they're doing, because it obviously has enormous implications for our area. We also established in that study, and I think we all found it rather incredible, $187 million in direct export activity by companies located in Clinton County. And these folks are in different ways helping to handle a lot of that, as well as a lot of other activity that isn't being generated directly from here, but is going through here. So just really a lot of importance, whether you're in Willsboro or Plattsburgh or wherever, what these folks doing are something that you all need to understand. We have three guests with us among our customs brokerage community here in Champlain today. Staub Spiegel from Transborder, welcome. Ralph Saunders from A. & Deringer, welcome Ralph. And Ann Williams from Tower Group, welcome Ann. Ann is also chair of our Canadian Connection Council at the Plattsburgh North Country Chamber, and very much a part of doing these impact studies and other programs that you hear us talk about in the program from time to time. Staub, what is a customs broker? Let's start with the most basic question. What does that term mean? What does a customs broker do?
Well, I think our main function is to represent either exporters or importers when they're shipping their product to the U.S. market. The main function that we do is we make a U.S. customs entry for them. We represent them at the border, saying to customs, we are their representatives. We're going to take the information off their commercial invoices, the documents that we receive from them, and we provide a customs entry and pay the duty on their behalf for them. Not only do we do that, but we represent them saying how to mark their goods, Other things that we can tell them is what documentation they need to export their goods to the country. What is very important, what customs is looking for as far as value, country of origin, the products that they're sending. We can advise them of the harmonized system code that fits their product. If not, we can go for customs rulings for them, where we would get maybe a letter from them and a sample from them, and we would send it to U.S. Customs to actually get a binding ruling from U.S. Customs, so they know exactly where their product fits and the exact duty rate that fits their product. And not only do we do that, but we're also freight forwarders, distributors of products. That's why we have such big warehouses here. We bring goods down from the border, overseas, wherever the products come from. We bring them into our warehouse, and we can do a total distribution network for their companies via carrier of their choice. So we kind of do a variety of functions.
So it's kind of, you're really kind of the full service providers to somebody, whoever they may be, that's sending some kind of good in one direction or the other across that border.
That's correct.
To help them, to advise them what the process is, help them do all the paperwork and the bureaucratic things that they don't want to do themselves and are maybe afraid they might not do right.
Exactly.
But then actually to physically handle the products in some cases.
That's true.
But that's not necessarily in every case, is it, Ralph? I mean, in some cases, are you just doing some aspects for the customer, but...
Yes, in some cases we do just brokerage for a customer. In other cases we might do brokerage, warehousing, distribution, redistribution. With our company here at Champlain, we do brokerage for some customers, plus provide the meat inspection facility for them to enable them to have their meat inspected by the USDA. And we also, all of us, I'm sure, represent our customers with other government agencies as well as the customs, making sure that their products qualify for the FDA, DOT, and all the other government agencies involved. And that is becoming more and more difficult to keep up with all the new regulations, electronics, and so on involved.
Okay, so it's not just the customs service, really, it's any federal or I suppose even state agency that may have some regulation that's related to that product or that good that's coming across the border. You help the customer understand and deal with whatever that approval is that may be needed.
Yes, for sure.
So that's got to be pretty complex to keep up with all that. You must have a lot of specialists. You have people that really kind of specialize in certain areas?
Absolutely, and those of us, most of us here have been in the business long enough, going back to the non-electronic days, everything was done with paper, no electronic transmissions of this data to any of the other agencies, and in fact they weren't even at the border. There was customs to deal with, and I think life was pretty simple back in the 60s, early 70s, and so on. And now you're right, Kerry, it is very complex. We do have specialists in various areas because there's just no way that any one individual or a group of individuals could know the whole picture. So, you know, we do specialize in various areas of the business.
Because I can just imagine that there would be implications even on a state-by-state basis depending on where whatever it is eventually headed.
Yeah, I would have to say that we don't get involved in a lot of state regulations. We might have calls from clients. No matter what a client calls on, you try to help them out. If you don't have the answer, you go to the right source to get the answer. And we do have sometimes we'll have to get permits for truckers to drive a product through various states and so on, and we will get involved in that, but it's certainly a long way from the core of our business and our expertise, I might add.
And obviously, we said it's anything that goes across the border. Could you give us a sense of kind of what the smallest kind of customer is you might deal with and what the largest is? Give folks a range of what kinds of customers you deal with?
Absolutely everything crosses at the border. Believe it or not, you would be surprised. And I think maybe our smallest customer might be that the thing I can think of offhand is like an artist. He or she makes a product in Canada and is trying to sell it to someone in the U.S. and it's a sole proprietor. He's his own business. He has no employees, and he's selling a very unique product. Some of our biggest customers are the big three automakers. There's a lot of vehicles being made in Canada, and they're crossing the border, and they need a broker to assist in that and facilitate the movement of those goods. So we have a wide variety of products coming in and a wide variety of customers, from very small to extremely large.
If we were to visit your site, just as an example, one today, what kinds of variety of things might we find going through there or being dealt with there on a typical day?
On a typical day, every day we have lumber crossing the border. There is a lot of textiles crossing the border through this port. I think because of the straight line gateway from Montreal, which has a very large needle trade industry, to New York City, where there's a lot of need and requirements for textile goods, and Canada has a reputation for making a very high-quality product. The automobiles that are coming every day on the rail cars, you have, like I said, a wide variety of products, food products. This is the vegetable season in Canada, so you see a lot of those shipments coming right now.
What's just interviewing? I just wanted to mention that I think there's a lot of anxiety when somebody wants to export. They kind of look at the border as, wow, it's another country. It's so involved to go there, but I think that once they speak to a broker and they have them maybe visit their facility or talk to them on the phone, that they can find out just how easy it is to export their products. With a little bit of knowledge and show them how to do a little bit of paperwork, they open up a huge market for themselves and find out just how easy it is.
Yeah, that's a good point. That actually is a particular asset for businesses of all kinds here in the North Country, that we've got all you folks as a resource right here in the backyard. As opposed to if they were in Jamestown or Pennsylvania or someplace and thinking about sending something to Canada, they'd be dealing with you long distance. Here you've got all these folks, if you're thinking about dealing in Canada or elsewhere in the world, you've got all these specialists collected right here to tap into, and that can be a real advantage to a North Country business, to take advantage of these services and these specialists that are right next door and be able to deal with them face to face and right up close. What is the, obviously there's a great variety of things there. Do any of you have anything you'd share with us, maybe the most unusual thing you think you've ever dealt with in a customs brokerage situation crossing our border here?
I just, one of the fascinating things that I find is, of course, we work with a lot of Canadian companies that are just starting into the U.S. market. And obviously, with the Canadian market the way it is, it's a much smaller place as far as market-wise. And you find that they start in the U.S. market, they start very slowly, cautiously, and they grow tremendously in a very, very short time, so they have to be very careful. Obviously, it's a big financial burden to expand their company that quickly because of the market being so big. And it's a nice thing to see when they, when you see a company develop their exports and start with you from day one, let's say, and sending one little shipment across, and the next year they're sending hundreds, and it's just it's a nice thing to see.
Well, actually, I think folks that probably, if they think about it, can just realize the change in growth in this whole realm of activity here. If they just think back 10, 15 years ago, and just realize the buildings that suddenly are there, and the additional companies that are here doing these kinds of services here. I mean, that seems to reflect that there's been a great deal of growth in this kind of activity at Champlain. Is that the case?
Yes, I would say so. We all know that if you went back, you'd probably have to go back to early 70s when the third broker arrived in the scene, and I believe the number is 14, unless somebody snuck in through the night that we don't know yet. But there are 14 different brokers at the port right now, which kind of, that leads you to realize that this business has grown tremendously. And not only is there more competition for the folks out there, but there's a lot more services provided today than we've ever provided collectively in the past. And it just shows you how much everybody seems to be thriving or doing well enough to stay in business. So that, the increase in business through NAFTA, the Canadian dollar, has just made this port grow tremendously.
Yeah, and I think if you look at the exports from Canada over the past, let's say, 20 years or even 10 years, that they have increased. And like Ralph mentioned, it's a combination of factors, and I think primarily it's the exchange rate. Most of us in the retail business here in New York are uncomfortable with the exchange rate because it decreases the number of retail shoppers, but it increases the exports from Canada into the U.S. because that Canadian product is now a little bit cheaper because of the exchange rate difference. And maybe there's a combination of other factors, the political climate and NAFTA lowering rates, but primarily I think you're looking at an exchange rate. And we typically see on the border, I think everyone would agree, that the lower the Canadian exchange rate gets, the more business we have. Sure,
I totally agree. And it's kind of funny because those of us making our living with this lower exchange rate, helping our businesses, are also, on the other hand, we're not getting the sales tax in Clinton County. We pay a little higher taxes, so we're going to win on one hand or the other.
Another way you can see how the growth has developed, obviously, is not only locally with the warehouse firms, but you can look at the Plattsburgh area. As far as the number of buildings that, obviously the Chamber is very involved with as far as warehousing facilities and trying to get the Canadian market people down here to open up in the United States to create jobs and employment. But there's a lot of things that they, which they should do to call a broker to find out more information on, and which I don't think they really have a lot of knowledge on, is the foreign trade zones and the bonded warehouse facilities, just so they know what it's all about and how they can utilize it. It's a big advantage for a lot of the people that are, exporting their products to the States, so that they can know that they can place these goods in these warehouses, and what's involved as far as the entry procedure, how they can not pay duty until it's withdrawn from the warehouses. But these are questions they can ask and that we're readily available to answer.
Well, let's touch on that, because I was going to ask about that too. What bonded warehousing? What is that about? What kinds of folks are using that service, and why is it important?
Well, imports from overseas, the textile trade, as Ann alluded to. We all have a sizable textile business at this port, at least the three of us do, I'm sure. By utilizing the bonded warehouse, you could bring one complete shipment in from overseas, put it in the bonded warehouse, withdraw the goods from the bonded warehouses only as it's sold. Therefore, you only pay for the one entry when the goods are imported into the warehouse, and you only lay out the duties as you've made your sales. So instead of laying out a lot of duty, having it sit in a non-bonded warehouse, waiting for sales to happen on the U.S. market, and having all that money laid out, you only lay it out as you get orders for the goods. So it's a tremendous advantage to larger firms, I would say, using.
For our average viewer out there, what is a bonded warehouse? What does it mean to be bonded, and how do you do that? What does that mean, Ann?
Well, a bonded warehouse is bonded by customs, more or less, and the proprietor has certain stipulations he has to follow. He puts up a security to customs that the goods that are in the bonded warehouse are going to be controlled and maintained, and proper documentation is filed. It in effect, is goods that have entered the country but have not cleared customs. They are still sort of in limbo, so to speak. They're in the country, but no paperwork has been filed showing that they've been consumed, and you really have a lot of flexibility about what you can do with those goods. If you choose to, you can export them back out of the country. You can move them to another bonded facility. You can decide when they are sold at that point to export and pay the duty, so it allows you to also delay the payment of the duties. It's also, as Stav mentioned, a good way for you to explore your options. Maybe you want to move into the U.S., but you're not quite ready. Using a bonded facility or foreign trade zone will allow you to sort of take that first step and see if you are ready to come into the U.S. But by using the bonded warehouse, you're halfway there. Your goods are there. They haven't been duty paid, and you can pretty much do what you want with those goods in the bonded facility as long as all the regulations and requirements have been met.
A little bit of difference between, just kind of elaborating a bit on the difference between the foreign trade zone and the bonded warehouse. In the foreign trade zone, you're in nowhere land, as they say. But you have the option of remanufacturing goods in that warehouse. So, whereas in a bonded warehouse, you place the goods, you're not allowed to touch the goods until they're withdrawn. In a foreign trade zone, you can actually remanufacture the goods. If you're a sewing industry, you can do sewing on it, dyeing in it. So you can set up a little bit of a manufacturing operation that may even change the product, and when you enter the goods into the new country, it may be a totally different product, which may allow you to pay a lower rate of duty.
Or they may just be taking them right back.
That's right.
To where they came from. So they're just taking advantage of the labor costs or something.
That's correct.
In that area, and just taking them right back and never really dealing with customs. That's right. Just to help folks understand different terms they may hear, your customs brokerage, we also frequently hear the term of freight forwarding. What is freight forwarding?
Freight forwarding is the facilitation of the goods across the border, or actually it's anywhere. It's not just across the border. You can call a freight forwarder to do something as simple as provide cargo insurance on your goods, or the freight forwarder can do something as exotic as arranging transportation of a huge piece of equipment from Europe and flying it to the U.S. and making sure that it's delivered to destination by putting it on a train or on a truck or whatever means are necessary. Freight forwarders and brokers commonly work together to provide total logistics to a client. And total logistics means that you make one call to that broker forwarder, and that company will arrange transportation, customs clearance, delivery to destination, preparation of some of the paperwork, and it allows you sort of one-stop shopping. A freight forwarder may also be a broker may also be a freight forwarder, but they're actually two different distinct companies with two different responsibilities, and there are many freight forwarders out there that are not brokers and vice versa.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I know we have members that are of the chamber who are freight forwarders but aren't customs brokers. And I assume there are some operations here that are doing customs brokerage activity but not doing freight forwarding. Is that the case? And then there are full service operations that are kind of doing it all. So folks may be dealing with different, dealing through the process in different ways.
Yeah, one of the things, if I may comment on the logistics portion of it, and it's very interesting because you might not think of ocean freight going out of the port of Chicago, but I know my company will have a weekly consol which will consolidate freight from around the area in Chicago. It's placed on rail cars. It's eventually driven up to Canada, and it's sent out by Canada Maritime through the Port of Montreal. And you know, for the local person, even people who are in the business, who are just learning the business, it just doesn't sound right. But you don't have to call someone at the place, at the source of the freight, to get the job done. You could call any of the brokers or freight forwarders, the larger ones who have a network to move goods from anywhere in the United States to anywhere in the world. And although their own employees might not be handling this, they will take the responsibility, work it all out, and you'll get one bill from them for the whole movement, basically anywhere in the world.
How is NAFTA changing things, particularly as it continues to kick in the coming years? How is that going to change what you do, or does it?
Well, I always like to say that NAFTA decreased the duties and increased the paperwork.
Perfect.
And that's pretty much what we're seeing. We're seeing a reduction in duties, which makes a lot of people happy. They can now cost their goods a little bit lower and make it more competitive. But the responsibilities that go along with that duty reduction are very important. You don't want to be told by customs 4 or 5 months after you've shipped the goods that, whoops, NAFTA does not apply, and now instead of a 0 duty rate, you're paying 30% because that might have done something to your profit margin. So it's very important to understand NAFTA, to call a broker and receive some consulting on NAFTA and understand what documentation is required. It also has increased what we do a little bit in that customs is going into the foreign countries, especially Canada, for verification visits. Most of our customers panic and they get that phone call or that letter from customs, and they will call us and then sit down and do some serious talking about the paperwork requirements that probably should have been done before the claim was made. But it's increasing our workload, perhaps at a post-entry standpoint. At time of entry, I think our jobs are getting easier with electronic transmissions and things of this sort. But after entry, these things are happening, and our clients are coming to us when customs questions a NAFTA claim, and that's where you'll see an increase in responsibility, not only for the customer, but some of the things that we provide and the services we provide to our customers are more on a post-entry basis because of NAFTA.
So, I mean, NAFTA isn't going to make you folks go away, is it? I mean, because there's so much that customers are going to need. It's going to be cheaper, and markets may be more open to folks. If anything, that's probably going to increase cross-border activity. It's still going to need to be serviced in various ways.
Yeah, absolutely. Another thing, too, in addition to being brokers, we're actually bankers as well. As Stav alluded to, we pay in the duties for the customer. Well, the amount of money a broker needs, if the primary place of business is along the northern border and the majority of goods that a broker clears are NAFTA-eligible goods, with the duty rates decreasing each year and going out in, what, 98, am I right here, another year, then the outlay of money that broker has to lay out for the customers and then use their credit and collection staff to collect has decreased a lot. So that's another area that it has helped us. But I totally agree with the increase in the paperwork. A reduction in duties, increase in paperwork. We'll be around for a while unless they change the rules drastically.
And probably more activity.
Yeah. And one last point on that, unless you want to jump into stuff, on this is, too, like a lot of people might think everything coming out of Canada is duty-free, and it is not true at all. Certain items are. There's rules of origin. We could probably do a show. I don't know if I'd want to be involved in it, but from a management perspective, we have a lot of technical people that could give you a lot better, more insight on this. But there's specific rules of origin, and as Ann alluded to, people can get themselves in trouble by just claiming the NAFTA or assuming that their products are eligible, pricing them that way, and finding out later that they're not.
To put things in some perspective, too, this is a very important border crossing point. As Canada and the U.S. kind of merge in various ways, and it's likely to only become more important, isn't it?
We are one of the biggest ports.
I was going to say, does anybody know?
I'm not
Top
sure
10?
which one. I think Champlain's probably number 2, maybe.
I'm not sure.
But anyway, I was just thinking here that, you know, what I find fascinating being in the North Country and seeing and talking with North Country business people is that 50 miles away, Montreal caters to probably about 2 million people. And I've talked to local business people and said, why don't you go to Montreal and drive up there and just see what is up there and what kind of businesses might buy your product. Mm-hmm. And I think that they have this big fear that it's just crossing the border is such a hard thing to do. Mm-hmm. And I've talked to a couple of people and said, you know, it's very easy. We'll obviously help you not only coming to the States as because of our services as a U.S. broker, but we can hook you up with a Canadian company that will help you with the exports going into the Montreal market, Ottawa market, Ontario market. For a small business person, with that kind of volume of people just up the road, I think it's a big advantage for them to do a little bit of homework and try to expand their business.
I'm glad you mentioned that because the Chamber has been sounding that too, and we're going to keep sounding it. Is that we are next door to this major market, and it's not just tourists and people coming down here to shop. They buy things, and they buy things up there, and they buy a lot of American things, and they like a lot of U.S. products, and it could be your product out there or your service. And you're doing yourself in if you aren't taking advantage of this huge market next door to you and just trying to work the same customers, you know, in Plattsburgh or Champlain here. And folks out there that may think it's just a big company that could consider doing that. That's not the case. It's certainly not the case anymore. I mean, it could be the print shop in Plattsburgh could be looking for printing orders across the water, and we have some that are already doing that. But you mentioned, you know, the craft maker that may be producing some crafts down here and may want to get some outlets and some shops up there, or all kinds of small businesses shouldn't think that exporting is just something for big guys. It's beyond them. And you've got all these resources here, and you've got the Chamber, and you've got these folks and others here in the North Country that can make it even easier than it would be if you were someplace else that wouldn't have the folks available to help you do it, and you should be doing it. Because if those 2 million people weren't on the other side of the border, would you be ignoring them? You certainly wouldn't be. And that border shouldn't be frightening. It isn't that big a deal, and particularly when you got folks that'll take care of it for you.
There's 3 main components that you really got to look at. I mean, what these people have to look at. Say you're a office supply store. Mm-hmm. It basically comes down to how much is it going to cost me for duties to get my product in, transportation, and brokerage fee. If you can cost those 3 goods into your prices and be competitive, there's a huge market.
There's a huge market there. So there you have it. A whole different aspect of what's going on economically here in the North Country. It's big, it's important, and hopefully we've helped you learn a little more about it. But also for those of you in business there, we hope maybe we pointed out there are some helpmates there to help you tap some new markets. And if you want to know more, call us at the Chamber, 563-1000. We'll be happy to help you link up with these folks or others that can help you explore some of these opportunities. Thank you for watching North Country Commerce.